From the blissful beginnings of a secret love to the heart-wrenching collapse of a once-hoped-for future. This story unveils a dramatic journey of struggle, rejection, and resilience. Gabriella's life, marked by her fight against a traditional family's biases and the harsh realities of an ungrateful marriage, reveals a path filled with both triumph and despair. From her early sacrifices to her efforts in building a life with Elias, only to be faced with betrayal and harsh judgments. Gabriella's journey is a testament to enduring strength and heartbreaking challenges. Witness how a once hopeful romance evolves into a battle for dignity and self-worth in the face of relentless adversity. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. In a heart-wrenching twist of fate, the once-beloved husband, overwhelmed by societal shame, introduced his wife as merely his maid in the sterile corridors of his workplace. Years later, after their painful separation, their paths crossed once more. The mere utterance of his name sent a shiver down his spine, a haunting reminder of their shared past. Gabriella, born as the cherished first daughter of an exceptionally conservative family, was expected to adhere to the rigid customs and traditions that governed her upbringing. From an early age, she felt the crushing weight of not meeting her parents' expectations. The absence of a male heir cast a long shadow not only over her life but also over her mother, who bore the brunt of relentless familial scorn for bearing a daughter instead of a son. The rejection Gabriella faced did not end with the harsh judgments directed at her mother. In a moment of deep-seated sadness and frustration, her mother laid the blame for their familial troubles squarely on Gabriella's shoulders. The arrival of her younger brother a year later only intensified the disparity. The boy became the shining star of the family, showered with affection and care, while Gabriella was left to taste the bitter loneliness that seemed to cling to her every moment. She grew up under the heavy burden of believing it was her duty to sacrifice her own needs for the sake of her brother, giving up new clothes, the finest food, and even the comfort of a warm blanket. On frigid winter nights, while her brother enjoyed the luxury of a cozy bed, Gabriella would huddle beneath a meager mattress covered with threadbare blankets. When it was time for high school, her brother was enrolled in an esteemed private institution, a privilege Gabriella could scarcely even imagine for herself. The resentment simmered within her, yet her yearning for knowledge burned brighter than ever. With an unyielding resolve, she pleaded with her father to allow her to pursue further education. Her pleas were met with scornful laughter and derision. "Why waste money on a girl?" her father sneered, embodying his outdated and harsh perspective. "It's not enough that you've gone to school until high school. Be grateful to us for that and focus on working to pay for your lodging and then getting married." His words were like daggers, sharp and painful. Though his disregard stung deeply, Gabriella's spirit remained unbroken. She continued to dream of a future where she could chart her course, undeterred by the limitations imposed upon her. Undaunted by her father's cruel dismissal, Gabriella, at the age of 16, secured a job at a textile factory. There, she balanced the grueling demands of daytime labor with secret nighttime studies, hidden from the disapproving eyes of her family. Books became her silent confidants, and the knowledge she gained was her clandestine weapon. In the oppressive environment of her home, each page she turned felt like a rebellious act of defiance against the narrow expectations set before her. For 3 arduous years, Gabriella fought with every ounce of strength she had. By day, she toiled in the factory, and by night, she immersed herself in her studies with unwavering dedication. Her relentless efforts bore fruit when, at 19, she passed the equivalent of her high school diploma, a triumph she achieved solely through her indomitable will and hard work. This accomplishment marked a profound transformation within Gabriella. She resolved to reject any notion of inferiority simply because she was a woman. Under the cover of darkness, she left her home, seeking liberation, and began a new chapter of her life, living independently. The next 19 years were filled with silent, steadfast struggle, but Gabriella chose a path of independence and equality over enduring injustice and subservience. The journey to living alone was fraught with challenges, but she found solace in a new job at a restaurant. It was there that she met Elias, the only son of the restaurant's owner. Elias, fresh from his stint in the army and poised to return to college, was the first to offer her genuine praise, which deeply touched her. The budding affection between them soon blossomed into love. Their relationship, nurtured in secrecy, culminated in a quiet marriage, and together they moved into Gabriella's modest apartment, beginning a new life built on mutual respect and love. The secret of Gabriella and Elias's marriage was soon exposed, and the revelation struck like a thunderbolt. Elias's mother, who was also Gabriella's employer, was both stunned and enraged when she discovered the union. Her reaction was explosive, and she confronted Gabriella with a fiery fury that left no room for doubt about her disapproval. "I employed you out of pity," she spat out, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and betrayal. "But to marry my son behind my back? How dare you? You thought I would tolerate this?" she continued, her face contorted with anger. "You think you can waltz into my family after this betrayal? Not. Forget your payment. You've been nothing but a source of trouble. My son deserves someone far better. Someone beautiful and accomplished, not someone like you." Gabriella, trembling with fear, tried to defend herself. "Madam, I didn't seduce your son. We simply fell in love." "You come from a completely different world," the mother sneered. "You and Elias are mismatched, and I will stop at nothing to ensure you're out of his life." With that, she spun on her heel and stormed out, leaving Gabriella devastated by the harsh words and the glaring injustice of it all. Before Gabriella could utter a single word in her defense, Elias's mother had already dismissed her from her job, refusing to pay her the wages she was owed. The mother's rage didn't end there. She barged into Elias and Gabriella's modest apartment, shattering the peaceful haven they had managed to create. Gabriella was paralyzed with fear as she watched the chaos unfold until Elias arrived and saw the wreckage. "Mom, this has to stop," Elias interjected firmly, holding his mother back with a gentle but resolute touch. "I chose to marry Gabriella, and we're expecting a baby. You're going to be a grandmother." The news momentarily stunned his mother into silence, but it wasn't long before her fury reignited with a fresh wave of accusations. "And what if that child isn't even yours?" she challenged, her voice dripping with skepticism. Elias stared at his mother with unwavering conviction. "The child is mine. I am certain." Upon hearing this, Elias's mother crumpled to the floor, overwhelmed by a torrent of grief and anger. She sobbed and screamed, "How could you do this? You had a promising future. You're throwing away everything your father and I sacrificed. You're ungrateful." Gabriella found herself amid a marriage marred by the hostility and disdain of her mother-in-law, a weight that pressed heavily upon their union. Elias, committed to their future, promised that once they were more financially stable, they would have a proper wedding celebration. Despite their strained finances, Gabriella, who was now unemployed and distanced from her own family, reassured Elias, "I'm content with the life we have." Although her words were sincere at the moment, she couldn't entirely shake the feeling that she was concealing part of her truth. Eventually, Elias's mother, though begrudgingly, reconsidered her stance. She didn't want her grandchild to grow up in poverty, and so she insisted that Gabriella and Elias move in with her. Pregnant and exhausted, Gabriella found herself juggling household chores and the demanding work at the restaurant. Her mother-in-law's complaints were relentless, with every day marked by harsh criticisms and accusations. Gabriella was branded as lazy and was berated for her complaints about the overwhelming workload, adding another layer of strain to her already challenging existence. Gabriella endured these relentless hardships for over 5 long years. In the quiet solitude of her nights, she often wept in secret, overwhelmed by the weight of her trials. The relentless strain took its toll, yet amidst the storm, she found solace in her husband. His unwavering support was her anchor. His hand, tenderly holding hers, offered a semblance of comfort and love. However, the turbulence of Gabriella's life reached a new crescendo when her mother-in-law, falling victim to a cunning fraudster, lost all her savings. The shock and desperation were palpable. The once proud woman, now shattered, lamented, "How could he do this to me? All my money, all my savings, gone." Elias, stricken with disbelief and anguish, could barely contain his frustration. "Oh my God, Mom, how could you fall for such a scam? What are we supposed to do now?" Gabriella stepped in, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Elias, please stay calm. Your mother didn't mean for this to happen. She was deceived. And look, even though it's not much, I have managed to save some money. With that, we can afford a modest basement apartment. Please, don't blame your mother for this." Yet, the mother-in-law's anger flared even more. "How dare you speak to my son like that? This is all your fault. If you weren't a mere, insignificant woman from the outskirts, we wouldn't be in this mess. We would have a respectable place to move into." Gabriella could have been crushed by the harshness of these words, but instead, a profound sadness washed over her. With a daughter depending on her, she couldn't afford to succumb to despair. Gathering her resolve, she took charge and secured a small, modest basement apartment, determined to forge a new path for herself and her family. As time went by, her mother-in-law fell ill, and Elias took on multiple jobs to improve their precarious financial situation. Gabriella was far from idle. She took on extra work at home to contribute as much as she could. Their struggle persisted for over a decade. The relentless effort to keep up with bills and necessities began to erode the love Elias once had for her. Despite the grueling conditions, Gabriella adapted to this harsh reality with remarkable resilience. Her primary focus remained on providing the best life possible for her daughter, facing every challenge with unwavering dedication. Whenever her daughter expressed a desire or need, Gabriella would go to great lengths to fulfill it, even if it meant sacrificing her comfort and well-being. Gabriella's mother-in-law never missed an opportunity to voice her dissatisfaction. "Don't you think you're spoiling her too much? You should be paying more attention to your husband instead of sacrificing everything for that child." Gabriella met her criticism with firm resolve. "I'm certain that my husband agrees with me. He works tirelessly to ensure our daughter has everything she needs, and that is something you, as a grandmother, should appreciate." The mother-in-law's response dripped with disdain. "How dare you speak to me like that? We're only here because of your family's misfortune, poor and struggling." Unperturbed, Gabriella stood her ground. "If I recall correctly, our situation arose because of your misplaced trust. We're all navigating the consequences together." The fury in Elias's mother reached a new peak. She unleashed her wrath by shattering objects throughout the house, creating a scene of chaos and destruction. Gabriella, overwhelmed by the storm of her mother-in-law's rage, swiftly gathered her daughter and left the house, seeking refuge until the upheaval subsided. Meanwhile, Elias's mother, after her tantrum, resorted to feigning illness, retreating to her bed in an attempt to garner sympathy from Elias, who had just returned from work. Elias, still in the throes of his mother's manipulative display, turned his frustration on Gabriella. "My mom says you've been rude to her. I didn't expect this behavior from you," he accused, his tone filled with disappointment. Gabriella, feeling the sting of injustice, responded with hurt and frustration. "Rude? She never misses an opportunity to belittle me and criticize every little thing, and we're in this mess because of her." Elias, trying to defuse the situation, softened his tone. "Gabriella, you need to think about her health. We have to be more patient." This well-meaning but misguided advice only served to widen the rift between them. Gabriella felt increasingly alienated. Her efforts to maintain harmony and care for her family met with scorn and criticism. Despite these mounting challenges, Gabriella remained resolute. Her perseverance and determination paid off when she managed to buy a new house by the time her daughter entered high school. As they moved into their new home, her mother-in-law continued to undermine her achievements. "You should be grateful to my son," she sneered. "Gabriella, despite being married to you, Elias managed to get us out of that mess." Gabriella knew all too well that her sacrifices and hard work had been crucial in securing their new home, but she chose to keep this knowledge to herself while organizing their new life. Familiar with the sting of her mother-in-law's disdain and accustomed to being undervalued, Gabriella fortified herself against the insults, clinging to the hope that things might eventually improve. Yet, her optimism was soon shaken as her marriage began to unravel. The problems began when Elias started a new job with a company that specialized in building homes and commercial buildings. "Gabriella, the team at the office is meeting again to address some issues," Elias announced. "Again? This is the third meeting this week," Gabriella replied, her voice laced with suspicion. "Look, Gabriella, you need to understand. The company has secured numerous new clients and demands all my attention," he explained, though Gabriella was painfully aware that these meetings often included drinking and socializing with other women. His frequent absences, often stretching into the early hours of the morning, troubled her deeply. Each time she expressed her discontent, Elias reacted with irritation. "Gabriella, you don't even acknowledge the sacrifices I'm making for our family. Seeing the way you dress only makes me want to work harder. You look so disheveled. It hardly seems like you're my wife." Elias's words cut deeply, each comment a sharp jab at her self-esteem. The emotional weight of his harsh remarks left Gabriella feeling increasingly isolated and wounded. Gabriella felt the sting of Elias's words cut through her with a harsh, searing pain. She had devoted the best years of her life to his family, enduring relentless criticism and sacrifice, only to be publicly humiliated by the very person she had supported through it all. One particularly grueling night, after another of Elias's cruel remarks, Gabriella retreated to the bathroom. As she washed her face, she couldn't tell if it was the water or her tears that streaked her skin. Her reflection in the mirror looked as broken as she felt. The next morning, Elias, still drunk from the previous night, called Gabriella with a sense of urgency. "Gabriella, I need you to bring me a contract I left at home. It's on the head of the bed. I need it in 10 minutes. Hurry up." Gabriella barely had time to pull herself together. She grabbed her purse and the contract, and in a rare move called a taxi to rush to Elias's office. Arriving breathless and anxious, she was met with Elias's scornful gaze. "What kind of clothes are those?" he asked, his voice dripping with contempt. "Do you want to embarrass me?" As if on cue, a sharply dressed young man approached them. Elias turned to Gabriella, his irritation palpable. "What are you doing here?" "I came with the contract," Gabriella explained, bewildered by his reaction. "I thought you needed it urgently." Elias took the document without a word of thanks and introduced Gabriella with a dismissive tone to his colleagues. "She's not just an employee. We hired her to help with cleaning." The sting of his words felt like a physical blow. Gabriella, crushed by his disregard and the public belittlement, stood frozen as she overheard Elias's conversation with his colleagues. "He must be rich, he even has an employee," one colleague commented. "I can't believe he lives with someone like that," Elias added. "Look at her clothes and her hair. I've had to argue with her just to get her to look presentable." His colleagues agreed. "True, she's not your type at all. But you need to secure that contract for your promotion to manager. Your wife must be very proud of you." The disparaging remarks left Gabriella shattered. She returned home, her emotions in turmoil, and spent the rest of the day at a clothing store, hoping that new clothes might somehow restore her sense of worth. But when she arrived home, Elias's harshness continued unabated. "No matter how you dress, inside you're still the same. How dare you spend my money on these clothes? Return them. You've made me look bad at work." Gabriella stood there, her heart aching from the relentless cycle of humiliation and scorn. Despite her efforts to improve her appearance and her unceasing dedication, she found herself continually devalued and demeaned. Gabriella, her spirit bruised and her heart heavy, refused to back down. Despite Elias's relentless mockery and the scornful words of his mother, she stood firm, her resolve as solid as ever. The situation had reached a boiling point, and Gabriella's tolerance for their cruelty was at an end. Elias's declaration of divorce was like a hammer blow. "Gabriella, enough. I've taken this marriage as far as it can go. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I want a divorce. You better find another place to live." Stunned and wounded, Gabriella demanded, "How can you betray me and act like you're in the right?" Her shock quickly hardened into determination. Despite the betrayal, she was resolute. The house she had invested so much in was not something she was willing to relinquish without a fight. Elias's mother added to the torment, throwing Gabriella's clothes into the trash with a scornful remark. "You're hindering my son's future. He finally has his eyes open. You weren't even able to give him a male heir." The sight of her discarded belongings and the venom in her mother-in-law's voice was almost too much to bear. As Gabriella's daughter arrived home from school, her distress over the scene was palpable. Tears streaming down her face, she implored, "Why do you have to endure this? You should leave Dad, who's cheating on you, and Grandma, who doesn't understand anything. I can't stand seeing you suffer like this." The mother-in-law, incensed by her granddaughter's defiance, lashed out. "Where did she learn to be so bold? You must have taught her that." The girl, fueled by anger and frustration, retorted, "I hate you. You only know how to mistreat my mother. And now you're trying to justify Dad's affair just because you think his new child will be a boy." With a cruel smile, the mother-in-law responded, "That's right, little brat. You're not going to continue our family line." Gabriella, heart aching but voice firm, declared, "I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Valentina. This house is as much ours as it is yours. We won't be expelled for mistakes we didn't make." Elias seemed poised to respond with more harsh words, but Gabriella cut him off. "Enough of this nonsense. We're going to resolve this divorce as quickly as possible. However, my daughter and I will only leave this house after you give me half its value and agree to pay alimony. Otherwise, I'm going straight to a lawyer to resolve this in court." Elias's dismissive reply stung. "You're very greedy." Gabriella's eyes flashed with a mixture of defiance and resolve. "Greedy or not, I'm claiming what's fair. I've sacrificed too much to be dismissed this way. We'll settle this legally, and I won't let you or your mother push us out without a fight." Gabriella's eyes flashed with anger as she asserted, "This isn't greed. It's my right. I contributed more than half the value to build this house." Her voice took on an ironic tone as she added, "You're right to ask for a divorce, and I'm right to demand my rights. Do it, and you won't have problems with me in court." The mother-in-law, with her usual cruelty, interjected, "Don't worry about her threats. Just kick her out along with that idiot girl. You need to get rid of them to form your new family." In a burst of defiance, Valentina confronted her father. "Dad, I won't accept this. I can go to your work and tell everyone who you are," she threatened. Elias, taken aback by his daughter's boldness, shouted in anger, "How dare you speak to your father like that? My biggest regret was supporting an ungrateful daughter like you." Gabriella stepped in to defend Valentina. "Don't speak to her like that. She never depended on your money for anything, not even for her education." Elias, faced with Gabriella's determination and the threat of a legal battle, had no choice but to act. That night, he transferred the agreed-upon amount to Gabriella's account, satisfying the financial demands she had set. In the aftermath of the divorce, Gabriella went through a period of deep sadness. The end of her marriage and the challenges of supporting herself and Valentina were overwhelming. However, she knew she needed a stable income to ensure Valentina's education and their financial stability. She turned to an employment agency that recognized domestic skills as professional qualifications. Gabriella began working as a housekeeper, taking on one-day or short-term jobs. Her dedication and attention to detail quickly earned her a reputation for excellence. She approached each job with meticulous care, determined to rebuild her life. One day, the agency manager, Omar, called her in for a conversation. "Normally, I wouldn't do this with someone new," he said, "but you're an exception. We have a very demanding client who has fired 10 of our best employees. I thought I'd recommend you. All you have to do is clean the house 3 times a week and cook. The salary is triple what you currently earn. Do you accept?" Gabriella, anxious about the possibility of her ex-husband stopping alimony payments and the looming costs of Valentina's university, accepted Omar's proposal without hesitation. When Gabriella arrived at Omar's impeccably clean house, she was met with a daunting challenge. The residence was spotless, surpassing even the cleanliness of many hotels she had encountered. The thought of proving her worth in such a pristine environment made her nervous. She knew that securing this higher-paying position was crucial for her and Valentina's future. Determined, she steeled herself to rise to the occasion and demonstrate her skills, hoping this opportunity would be a turning point in their lives. Determined not to miss this opportunity, Gabriella dove into her tasks with unwavering dedication. She scrubbed curtains, washed sheets, disinfected lamps, and organized the refrigerator with meticulous care. Completing these chores quickly, she still had time left, so she ventured to the market, selecting fresh ingredients and preparing meals without knowing Omar's exact preferences or seasoning choices. Gabriella was committed to making this job work not only for her but also for Valentina's future. As she adjusted her work uniform and glanced at her reflection, she was troubled by the thought that the payment seemed excessive for the short amount of work she had done. To address this concern, she wrote a detailed letter to Omar, suggesting that if he had any special dish requests, he could leave a note on the refrigerator, and she would prepare the food accordingly. Since Omar was usually absent during Gabriella's working hours, they rarely interacted. Despite her worries, he did not express any dissatisfaction. Gabriella continued to work diligently, determined to ensure that her salary was fair and earned. One day, Gabriella noticed a date circled on Omar's calendar that did not correspond to any of her regular workdays. This piqued her curiosity, and she wondered if there was something special she should prepare for the event. Inspired by this, Gabriella decided to spend the night before cooking, losing herself in the kitchen as she prepared an array of dishes. When Omar returned home, he was surprised to find Gabriella still there. She hurriedly explained, "I'm sorry. I was so focused on the kitchen that I didn't realize how late it had gotten. I'm done now and can leave. By the way, have you already eaten? Should I set the table?" Omar, slightly intrigued, asked why she had cooked so much. Gabriella explained, "I saw that tomorrow is an important date on your calendar, so I thought I'd prepare this meal." Omar, who had been carrying shopping bags, hinted that he might have planned to cook for the special date himself. Gabriella felt a pang of doubt about her actions. Fortunately, Omar did not mention the issue again. "It's okay. Just put everything away, and then you can go," he said, heading to his room. Gabriella, surrounded by the comforting aromas of her cooking and troubled by her uncertainty, worried that her mistake might cost her the job. However, to her relief, no reprimands followed. The next day, Gabriella was pleasantly surprised to find a note on the refrigerator that read, "Thank you for the food." This simple gesture lifted her spirits and fueled her motivation. For the first time, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment from her work, realizing the joy of doing it with genuine care and dedication. The day after Gabriella's small gesture of cooking, she arrived at work to find another note from Omar, requesting that she reduce the portions of the meals. This marked the beginning of a new, positive way of communicating between them. Gabriella felt valued and appreciated in her role. Over the months, their exchange of notes continued, with messages such as, "The soup was delicious, please leave it warm for when you arrive," and "Dinner was excellent," becoming frequent. The atmosphere in the house felt lighter and happier. Omar once brought home a vase of flowers and asked Gabriella to take care of it in his absence. This small gesture further brightened her days and contributed to a more positive work environment. Gabriella began to look forward to her workdays with newfound enthusiasm, her worries about meal preparation fading away. She found herself smiling more often and feeling more content, which didn't go unnoticed by her daughter Valentina. One day, Valentina asked, "Mom, is he dating someone?" Gabriella, taken aback, replied, "Oh, Valentina, what kind of question is that?" Valentina observed, "You seem more lively than usual." Gabriella, trying to mask her discomfort, responded, "Oh, please, I'm just having good days." Valentina remained a bit skeptical but let the matter drop. One morning, Gabriella arrived at work to find Omar looking unwell, with flu symptoms. Despite his insistence that it was just the flu and advising her to go home to avoid infection, Gabriella, who was deeply concerned for others, couldn't leave him alone. She went to a nearby pharmacy, bought flu medicine, and prepared a nutritious chicken soup for him. Before leaving, she left a note on the refrigerator, instructing Omar to take the medicine and eat the soup to aid his recovery. The next day, Gabriella was surprised to find several beauty products left for her as a thank you gift. She felt uneasy about accepting them and decided to discuss it with Omar when he returned. Omar was surprised to see her still there and said, "I'm glad you like them. It's a way of thanking you for the care you showed and the meals you prepared. They are always tasty." Gabriella responded, "I appreciate the gesture, but I don't feel comfortable accepting such gifts." Omar insisted, "Please accept them. It's my way of showing gratitude." During their conversation, Omar shared, "Even though the food is excellent, it doesn't have the same flavor when eaten alone. I miss the company of family, something I haven't experienced in a long time." Gabriella agreed, saying, "Food does taste better when shared." Omar, with a touch of excitement, proposed, "That's why I was thinking, would you accept to have dinner with me one of these days?" Surprised but flattered, Gabriella responded, "It's been a while since I sat down to a meal with a man since my divorce, but I'd be happy to accept your invitation." When they finally had dinner together, the conversation flowed naturally. Gabriella learned that the date marked on Omar's calendar was in remembrance of his mother's death, not a romantic occasion as she had assumed. As they continued talking, Gabriella realized that Omar was very different from the men she had known before. Omar shared, "I never married. I'm older than you and have faced many challenges in my youth." Gabriella commented, "It must have been very complicated." Omar reflected, "It was. Over the years, I realized many women were interested in me because of my heritage, which led me to choose a solitary life." With empathy, Gabriella replied, "I regret those experiences for you." Omar continued, "The loss of my mother was the most difficult moment for me. It was when her absence truly felt profound." Gabriella and Omar's relationship continued to develop through their exchange of notes and shared moments. One morning, Gabriella found a note inviting her to dinner more frequently and a credit card for buying meal ingredients. Torn between professionalism and her growing feelings for Omar, Gabriella decided to return the card with a note explaining her desire to maintain a professional relationship. The next day, Gabriella received a phone call from Omar. Fearing it might be a farewell, she was surprised when Omar confessed his feelings. "Gabriella, I need to tell you something," he began. "Since meeting you and knowing your story, I felt something I've never felt before. I'm in love with you and your caring nature. I want you and your daughter to be a part of my family." Gabriella was taken aback. "Mr. Omar, as someone who was married before, I don't believe in never. We started with a good feeling, but people change, and you might end up regretting it." Omar reassured her, "I'm not a young man anymore. I'm willing to take that chance, even if it means regret." Despite her fears of suffering again, Gabriella was encouraged by her daughter Valentina's words, "Mom, everyone deserves to be truly happy." After reflecting on this, Gabriella accepted Omar's proposal, not only for herself but also for Valentina. Omar was overjoyed, and Gabriella, feeling a happiness she had never known before, began planning their future together. Excitedly preparing for her wedding, Gabriella was choosing her dress and planning the elegant hotel reception when she unexpectedly ran into her ex-husband, Elias, in the hotel lobby. His sudden appearance and critical remarks were a jarring interruption to her joy. "What are you doing in a place like this? It doesn't suit you," Elias mocked, clearly displeased by her presence. Gabriella, maintaining her composure, replied firmly, "It's none of your business. If I'm at a fancy hotel, it's because I choose to be. Leave me alone." Elias continued his attack, accusing her of replacing him with an older, wealthy man. "You think no one notices? You're just taking advantage of him," he sneered. Gabriella, undeterred, countered, "I'm not taking advantage of anyone. I'm simply seeking happiness, something I never found with you." Their confrontation was interrupted by Omar's arrival. Sensing the tension, Omar decided to address the situation directly. "I came to finalize a contract, but it seems there's been a misunderstanding," he said, turning to Gabriella. I did not come here for games. I've witnessed how Elias has spoken to you. I have no interest in doing business with him. The contract is no longer relevant. Elias, desperate to salvage the situation, attempted to negotiate. If you don't sign the contract, it will be a big problem for the company. I'll lower the prices and comply with all terms. Omar remained resolute. Your company's problems are not my concern. And one more thing, if you harass my fiancée again, you'll have to deal with me. Stay away from her. Realizing he had no leverage, Elias backed down, retreating with a defeated air. Omar turned to Gabriella, offering his support. With Elias out of the picture, Gabriella felt a renewed sense of security and happiness in her relationship with Omar. Their engagement marked the beginning of a new and promising chapter for Gabriella, who was now poised to embrace her future with hope and joy. After their wedding, Gabriella and Omar's life blossomed into a harmonious blend of their shared dreams and routines. Their happiness, however, faced a temporary disruption when Elias made an unwelcome reappearance. Fueled by anger and resentment, he vowed to interfere with Omar's care of Valentina. Elias's outburst was met with unwavering resolve from Valentina. You were never a father to me. Omar is my real father, she asserted with clear conviction. The confrontation reached a peak when Omar stepped in, defending his family with determination. I've already made it clear that I have nothing more to discuss with you. If you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police for trespassing, Omar warned. Elias, now intimidated, retreated and never returned, leaving Gabriella, Valentina, and Omar to enjoy their newfound peace. With Elias gone, the family settled into a life of tranquility. Valentina shared her exciting plans to study abroad, and Omar, ever supportive, promised to help her realize her dreams. Reflecting on their journey, Gabriella felt an overwhelming sense of joy and gratitude. I never thought I could be so happy, she confided to Omar one evening. Omar, holding her hand tenderly, replied, You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I will be here for you and Valentina as long as you want. Gabriella envisioned a bright future filled with love and fulfillment, where she and Omar would grow old together, support Valentina's aspirations, and perhaps even enjoy the laughter and joy of grandchildren in their garden. Her heart was full, knowing they had overcome so much to create a life of happiness and togetherness. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Gabriella and Omar's inspiring story. From overcoming past hardships to finding love and peace, their journey is a testament to the power of resilience and the pursuit of happiness. So, what have you learned from their story? How has Gabriella's journey resonated with you? And is there a lesson you've taken away that you plan to apply in your own life? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share one key takeaway and how you intend to put it into practice in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Your support means the world to us.